this video, I'm sharing a step-by-step pattern of making this small Amigurumi smiley emoji. This is a slow tutorial that helps beginners to understand and follow along. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. For this tutorial, I am using 4-ply worsted weight acrylic yarn with a 4mm crochet hook. I would suggest beginners to start with acrylic yarn, and once you master the techniques of amigurumi, then you can experiment with any yarn of your choice. So now let's begin by making a magic circle. So to make the magic circle, take the tail end in your left hand and then make a loop with the working end. Now from the center, insert your needle and grab the working end. Now leave the circle, grab your working end with your left hand and then make a chain 1. Now gently adjust the loop, and this we call it as a magic ring. Now let's start making the first row. Into the center, drop a loop and then make a single stitch. So that's the first single stitch in the first row. And while working amigurumis, we are going to put a stitch marker in the first stitch of each and every row. So as this is the first stitch in your row 1, put one stitch marker. Again, drop a loop from the center and make the second single stitch. And this is the third one. 4, 5 and 6. Once all the 6 single crochet stitches are done, you can count it, and now this hole will be closed by pulling the tail end gently. So this closes the magic circle and this completes your first row. Now remove the stitch marker, and here is where we have to start the second row. So identify where the stitch marker has been removed, insert your needle onto the top of the first stitch, make one single stitch, and here is where the second row begins. So put the stitch marker back into the first stitch. So this indicates the start of our second row. Now into the same stitch, according to the pattern, we are going to make one more single stitch. So these 2 stitches in the first stitch will make an increase. As the row starts from the first stitch, stitch marker should be put in the first stitch only. Now in the next stitch, we are going to make 2 more single crochet stitches, which means a single crochet increase. Now continue to make 2 more stitches in each and every stitch throughout the row. So this one is the third stitch. So we are making the third increase. Now this is the fourth stitch. Make 2 single crochet stitches into that stitch. So this one will be the fourth increase. We have 2 more stitches left. Make last 2 increases. So insert the needle into the 5th stitch. Make a single stitch. Again one more single stitch into the same stitch. And now the 6th stitch. Make a increase. That's the last increase for the second row. So this completes your second row, and if you count the number of stitches in the second row, you will get 12 stitches. So let me show you the count. So this is the last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and the stitch marker is the 12th one. So total you have 12 single stitches by the end of the second row. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the third row. Again adjust the loop. While working the amigurumis, identify to make the stitches with a tighter tension to eliminate the possible occurrence of holes. As you can see, there is a small hole in the second row. So to avoid that, you can use the small hook size. Now for the next row, after making the first single stitch, put the stitch marker back. So this marks the beginning of third row, and then to the next stitch make an increase. So that's one set, and this set is going to be repeated 6 times. So here is the second set, one single stitch and then one increase. So this completes the second set. Now let's do the third set. One single stitch, and then into the next stitch make one increase. Now the next set, one single stitch, and into the next stitch one increase. Now the next set, the fifth one, one single stitch and then one increase. And now finally the sixth set of the third row, one single stitch and one increase. So this completes your third row and you will have 18 single crochet stitches. So after completing 3 rows, this is how the shape looks like. And let's see the counting. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 and finally 18. So this is how the count satisfies if you are correctly following the pattern and also the stitch count. And this is the shape. It slowly takes the little small round curvature. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making fourth round. So for this, begin with one single stitch and now put stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the fourth row. Now into the next stitch make one single stitch. So we have 2 single crochet stitches in the fourth row. And don't worry about the holes as we are using acrylic yarn. Once the stuffing is done and after giving it a proper shape, all those holes will be hidden. Now into the next stitch make an increase. So 2 single stitches, increase, and now this is one set. We are going to repeat this throughout the row for 5 more times, which means a total of 6 times. So here we have started the second set. So that's 2 single crochet stitches and then into the next stitch make one increase. This completes the second set. Now let's move on to the third set. That's 1, 2 and then an increase. This is the third set. Next 1, 2 and then an increase. This is the fourth set and now we are doing the fifth one. So that's 1, 2 and then we have an increase. That's the fifth set. And finally the last set, 1, 2 and then the increase. This completes your fourth row with 24 single crochet stitches. You can again count the stitches and this count should be 24 along with the first stitch where we have put the stitch marker. Once your count is correct, then your pattern and shape are also obviously correct. And here is how the shape of the pattern looks like. Now let's continue to make row 5. For this, remove the stitch marker and now insert your needle into the next stitch and make one single stitch. Now put the stitch marker back and this indicates the beginning of fifth row. Now according to the pattern of row 5, make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. As we are not doing any increases, the count will remain the same, which means in row 4 you have 24 single crochet stitches. In row 5 also you will have 24 single crochet stitches. Just continue to make one single stitch and this pattern has to be repeated for row 7 and row 8 as well. So row 5 to row 8, in each row you will have 24 single crochet stitches in each row. Now after completing row 8, here is the shape of the smiley ball. It should look like this. Now let's start making the 9th row. For this, remove the stitch marker and then insert your needle into the first stitch and make one single stitch. And now put stitch marker back, and this marks the beginning of your 9th row. Now into the next stitch make one single stitch. So you have 2 single crochet stitches, and into the next 2 stitches we are going to make a invisible decrease. So first, to make the invisible decrease, identify the front loop of both the stitches. So this is the front loop of first stitch, and that is the front loop of second stitch. Now if you put the needle, make sure you put your needle through both the front loops at the same time. So first one, twist your needle and insert your needle into the second front loop. Now drop a loop out of both the front loops. Then continue to make a single stitch. So this makes a invisible decrease. So first set we have 2 single stitches and 1 invisible decrease, and then continue to make this set for 5 more times. So that's 2 single crochet stitches, and again we have 1 more invisible decrease. So insert your needle into the front loop of first stitch and then front loop of the next stitch. Now drop a loop and then make a single stitch. So this is the second set. Now we are going to make the third set. So that's 1 single stitch, second single stitch, and then 1 invisible decrease. Again needle into the front loops of both the 2 stitches and then make a single stitch. This is the third set. Now we are making the fourth set. So that's 1 single stitch, second single stitch, and then invisible decrease. And now the fifth set, 1 single stitch, second single stitch, and then 1 invisible decrease. So this gives you the fifth set, and finally we'll have to make 1 more set. That's 1 single stitch and then the second single stitch, and finally make an invisible decrease into the last 2 stitches. And this completes your 9th row, and you will have 18 single crochet stitches by the end of the 9th row. And you can see the stitches will get a little closer as we have made few decreases. Now you can put the starting tail end within the project, as we have to put the stuffing, so it won't bother us much. We don't have to hide the tail ends, just leave it in there for the stuffing. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 10th round. For this, again begin with 1 single crochet stitch and then put the stitch marker back into this new stitch to mark the beginning of the 10th row. Now into the next 2 stitches make 1 invisible decrease. So by now you might have already understood how to make the invisible decrease. So just follow the pattern, make 1 single stitch and then 1 invisible decrease. So this is the second set, and now we are going to make the third set. So 1 single stitch followed by 1 invisible decrease, again 1 single stitch and 1 invisible decrease. So this is the fourth set. We have 2 more sets to make. So 1 single stitch, 1 invisible decrease. So this is the fifth set. Then finally the last set, the sixth one, 1 single stitch and then 1 invisible decrease into the last 2 stitches. So this completes your 10th row, and you will have 12 single crochet stitches. And see the shape, it will look like a small round ball. Now stop your work here and let's start adding the stuffing into the toy. Take a good amount of Fiberfill and stuff it into the toy as shown in the video. Make sure to add the stuffing properly to give the good shape for your projects. Also remember that it should not be overstuffed and also it should not be understuffed. Either of it will ruin your project shape. So mindfully and carefully stuff your toys. Now once the stuffing is done, we can add other highlighting to this project, like you can put the eyes, nose and face to it. Here you can use safety eyes, or you can use embroidery methods to attach these embellishments. However, if you are using these toys to give it for a toddlers or infants, I would highly recommend embroidering the facial features. So for this demonstration, I am using a black color yarn. So using this, I am going to create eyes for the project. So carefully form a loop in your hand, and then using a working end, make a knot as shown in the video. Now repeat this turning process for 7 to 8 times to give the nice shape of eye. So that's the second turn, and to get it comfortable, you can make the loop bigger, and the number of repetitions you do in this loop is up to your wish. Depending on number of turns, the shape will also differ. Once completing all the turns, pull both the ends tightly and closely together, so that this will form a nice oval shape, and this will give you the eye shape for the smiley. Now repeat the same with another thread as well. So we have our eyes completed. Now using the tapestry needle, I am attaching the eyes to the smiley amigurumi, like the ball which we have done. So check the position. Here I am attaching it across the rows 3 and 4. Right. And now repeat the same with the other eye as well. Using the tapestry needle, insert both the eyes into the project. Now once the eyes are inserted, secure them by making a knot, and then you can trim the excess thread. As this is the black thread, I am not suggesting to leave these tail ends into the project, but usually we will leave all these tail ends as a stuffing into the project. Now let's add the mouth to this smiley to give this nice smiling face. So I'm just using a tapestry needle and a black thread, and just embroider the same in a small, nice big smile on the face. Once you attach this thread to the mouth as well, again secure the threads and then trim the excess thread. You can just adjust the symbols. If not, you can just use a hot glue gun and attach those features. No issues, anything is fine. Once it's done, just make sure you make a nice knots to secure it, and then leave those small tail ends into the stuffing. And to hide those, I'm just putting a little more stuff to it. And now let's continue to make the next row for the project. That's the last row for the closing row for this project. So remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 11th row. For this we have 6 invisible decreases. Now let's begin by making the first invisible decrease. That's the first invisible decrease, and then put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of this row. It's mandatory to put stitch marker for each and every row, as we are using a spiral technique. Now this one is the second invisible decrease. Carefully and using a good hand tension, you have to make all these last 6 stitches. So this one will be the third invisible decrease, and then the fourth invisible decrease. Next the fifth invisible decrease, and finally the sixth one. Here the project has got a little out of the box, but I'm so sorry for that, but I think you guys can cope up with the tutorial. Now remove the stitch marker and let's close the project. So for this, insert your needle into the next first stitch and then make a slip stitch. Now chain 1 and then trim the excess thread by leaving a little long tail end, not too big, or at the same time shouldn't be too small also. Just like a 6 to 7 inches is good enough. Now once the final knot is completed, again we are going to use the tapestry needle to close the last opening. So carefully insert the tail end into the front loops of all the stitches in the last row. So that's the first one. This is the second, third, then the fourth one, 5, and finally the sixth one. Once the yarn is through all the 6 loops, gently pull the tail end so that the opening will be closed completely. So this way there will be no gaps or no holes in our project. Once all the opening is closed, make one final knot to secure that opening, to secure the project, and then insert the needle through the center and pull it through the magic circle center just to give the shape of a circle. Again pass the needle from the top and hide it into the stuffing. This will give you a nice round shape, and once it's done, you can pass the needle through the stuffing a couple more times just to hide the tail end securely. Now trim this excess thread close to the project. Carefully cut the yarn because you don't want to cut your work, so you have to be extra careful while trimming this excess thread, and then poke that extra small little things which are visible into the project. And as we are using acrylic yarn, there is a little pilling you can see around the project. So to give that nice defined look, I'm using a heat to burn down all that excess lint across the project. You should be very careful while doing this step, because we don't want to burn the project. Just gently wrap it with a heat, and that's it. Your smiley amigurumi is now ready. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.